On the record tonight, coming to you from the Ethiopian capital of Addis Ababa. Well, Team South Africa is here in large numbers. They are led by the minister responsible for international cooperation, Nkoana-Mashabane. I caught up with her earlier in the day and began by asking her what it is exactly that Team South Africa is putting on the table this time around.
We have turned the vision into Agenda Africa. In South Africa, we went into the adoption of the first 10-year implementation plan of this Agenda Africa 2063, which focuses on the 7 aspirations of the AU, amongst them being silencing the gun by 2020, that there should be peace and security and development on the continent. We don't have a choice to do one and the other will come later, but both.
The question of silencing the guns. The guns are still not silent in Somalia. The guns are still not silent in South Sudan. The question is, what are we going to do differently this time, or what will this summit do differently to what we've done before?
Well, we've done things differently before and not so long ago. That is when the whole world had forgotten about Somalia and had declared Somalia a failed state. It took Africans to bring about, if you like, the renaissance of Somalia. We are dealing with this very painful but sporadic attacks, which happened largely much more in the Middle East than it does in Somalia. The determination of working with the people of Somalia, and thanks to the support and the volunteerism of countries like Burundi, Uganda, Kenya, and others, that we are not giving up. Somalia is not going back to the ruins. It's never going to be a failed state again. I think that's a matter we should celebrate, because this sporadic incidents of explosion of bombs happens in Paris, happened everywhere else, but of course nobody declares them failed states. They resolve to continue keeping on. So South Sudan, they are very few, as you know, our deputy president has been appointed by our president to be our special envoy as per the invitation of South Sudanese. There are very few disagreements on moving on. So I think the determination there also to move on is much greater today than it was yesterday. Largely, Vuyo, you and I are sitting here out of 54 states of our continent. We are now just pointing at a few. Years ago, 50 years ago, you would be referring to, not 50, but half of that. Half the countries were run by men, not women, men in uniform. That is a thing of the past. So we have made tremendous progress, and we are confident that it is not impossible for us to silence the gun by 2020. But also, those who see us as a market to sell their toys, to keep us killing each other, need to slow down. And I think we'll have to start naming names as time goes on.
The process that's supposed to be led by Uganda is anything to go by. We are not making as much progress with regard to Burundi. Your sense?
Our sense is that we will make progress because there's willingness from the government, and Burundi, as I was leaving the hall now, is a subject of the Permanent Representative Council, who are reporting to us about their work. And we've been having engagements with Burundi together with the chair of the East African community, the new Honorable Minister Mahiga. We've had a conversation with him right now. They visited us during the holidays to say, by the way, the peace that prevailed in Uganda didn't just come by. It was led by Nyerere, led by our father of the nation, Madiba, who handed over to President Zuma, who was deputy president then. They are now re-inviting us, as much as we are not members of the East African community, to work with them. And we found that to be very encouraging.
What is it exactly that they are asking South Africa to do? To
support the dialogue process. From the AU side, there are also initiatives that which will make sure that peace prevails, that there are no sporadic incidents that happen largely during the night with some faceless people who makes it difficult for them to move on.
And South Africa is being roped in not because of maybe the tensions within the East Africa community itself, which are making it, well, nearly impossible for that mediation effort led by Uganda to actually work. Is that not the reason?
No. President Zuma has worked with President Museveni in the past. And currently there is a consonant that we should again work together even in this. And President Zuma was very clear that we've never gone to any region self-invite. No.
Let's move on to infrastructure, Minister, which he said was also one of the key areas that are going to, this summit is going to focus on, and with President Zuma, of course, being the champion of the continent's infrastructure program. In your report back, what is South Africa going to be saying to this summit?
We will be saying that when we went to Sandton Media, we were still talking about identification of the projects. Now there's agreement that we need a speed train across the continent. And I'm happy to report to you, and I'm sure you'll hear that from the chairperson herself, that this pre-feasibility studies and studies, we are almost finishing that, of making sure that Africans who cannot fly can also ride by train from one place to the next. Because it's one thing to say we want free movement of goods and services, but if transporting cattle from Uganda to Kenya takes 2 weeks, it means that there's a lot that needs to be done on infrastructure connectivity. So the speed train is going on, project is going on well. We're working in partnership with China, and China announced in your presence, I guess, 300 billion on supporting Africa on this infrastructure project.
Lastly, Minister, I've got to release you. The chairperson of the AU in her opening remarks lamented the fact that there seems to be something that could be read as a regression insofar as the advancement of women in politics on the continent, citing the past 8 elections where there didn't seem to be much movement in advancing women. Your thoughts?
My thought is, and I've shared this with her, before the OAU was formed, there was a Pan-African Women's Organization. This is our history. It was formed on the 31st of July in Tanzania. Remember the Freedom Charter of South Africa? The women started it. In 1954, women had a women's charter. So we never give up. She lamented that because she wanted to raise our awareness that power is not a bag of oranges. We are going to have to stand up. As I said, I have now learned that patriarchy is not an African thing only. It's all over the world. When people talk leadership, they think men. But we've seen progress here in the continent where men and women work in partnership.
It's time to take another quick ad break. Don't go away.